is the light of unity. It can light the world for you and for me. So why don't we reach out and be one planet, one people, please.
Hi, I'm Billie Crofts, and my co-host for today is Jayne Mahboudi. Jayne, I am so glad to be here with you today.
It's good to be here, Billie.
Welcome to the spiritual revolution. What part does religion play in contributing to a greater understanding of the racial diversity within the human family?
The principle of the unity of mankind and the oneness of all races is the foundation of the Baha'i religion. We believe there is but one race, the human race. Today we will be sharing with you the Baha'i point of view on what this means and what Baha'is are doing to help bring about the unity of the races.
How can we preserve and cherish the diversity within the human family and still feel a spirit of universal brotherhood? Stay with us. We'll be right back.
The central theme of the Baha'i faith is unity. We believe that there is only one God, that all the world's religions represent one changeless, eternal faith of God, and that there is but one race, the human race, destined to live in peace and harmony.
Welcome back. Our guests for today are Anita Strickland, Sylvester Scott, and George Lord. Sylvester, what does the Baha'i faith offer towards racial harmony?
Well, the Baha'i faith offers, in my opinion, a spiritual solution to the problem, which I think is largely overlooked in society when we take a look at this problem. The tendency is to advance some material solution, that we need to share more, give more, equal access to facilities, more money, more programs, and so forth. And we see it essentially as a spiritual and moral issue. It's an ethical issue. And therefore, the solution to ethical and spiritual problems are spiritual solutions. And what the Baha'i faith offers is that. And I think that the foundation stone of this solution is the concept in the Baha'i faith that mankind is one. If people can get that, they can begin to understand that the problem is a lot more simple than we understand, that mankind is one. Baha'u'llah talks about a very powerful quote in his writings, that he talks about, why that we were created from the same substance. He says, "Know ye not, while we created you all from the one same substance, that no one should exalt himself over the other." And then he says, "Ponder in your hearts at all times how you were created. Since we have created you all from the one same substance, it is incumbent upon you to be even as one soul, to eat with the same mouth, walk with the same feet, and dwell in the same land, that from your inmost being, by your deeds and actions, the signs of oneness and the essence of detachment may be made manifest."
I see. So as an African American, Anita, how has the Baha'i faith been safe for you?
The Baha'i faith gave me a safe place to be who I am, yet experience the diversity of all cultures. Jayne, where I was born, we were segregated. We had no interaction. So can you imagine how I felt when I was introduced to the faith? Where I saw people of all races truly accepting and loving each other. After I found that, my impression deepened because I found that this was a solution announced by a prophet of God, Baha'u'llah. Baha'u'llah tells me that I have to accept others. He tells all people to love and be unified, but he comes not to take mankind as a body. He comes to bring our hearts and our souls in accord with who we are to be in this world today.
You touched upon the feeling part. If somebody can accept something from an intellectual point of view, it's like with women. How many times can you know that man is bad for me? I know it here, but I can't help the way I feel. So what we think to be a fact has very little to change how we feel. So when the Word of God comes into our lives, it transforms our heart so that we can feel the reality and know it from a spiritual point of view instead of an intellectual point of view. Because we always say, well, I can't help the way I feel.
Exactly. Think now. We have always had feelings, but we have always been polarized.
Mm-hmm.
The feelings are not the anchor of change. We are transformed when we begin to serve God and obey what we have been told through the ages. This is not a new message.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, I can agree. I can understand the feeling that Anita had, and my first introduction to the Baha'i faith, I guess I was in my mid-20s maybe, and I was also born in the South and lived most of my early life in a segregated society. And my attitude had turned to one of militancy over the time, and I'm sure there was a lot of black people who felt the same way, especially during the 60s. It was a very turbulent time. And what happened for me with that particular issue, as I was introduced to the Baha'i faith, is that when it was very clearly and emphatically stated that God said this is okay, you know, I am equal and I don't have to assert myself to prove it to anyone, that mankind is even better, then it set with me, and my energy was then turned in a whole different way, from the standpoint of having to assert my rights and to do by whatever means necessary, as Malcolm used to say, to get my just due. Now it was like doing it God's way, because he had said, this is okay, this is the way it is, mankind is one. And because he said it, I knew that that was a reality. And all I had to do is kind of work within his program in order to make it happen.
And you as a black man, and me as a white female, our point of authority is exactly the same. So what is right for you spiritually is right for me. I have to accept the universal brotherhood of all peoples, of all races, of all cultures. That is what I am called upon to do as a white female.
I think the thing that impressed me the most with the Baha'i faith was the fact that it was historically active in the idea of racial harmony and racial unity. The Baha'i faith did not just come along back in 1970 and say that African Americans and people of color, white people should just be in the same family. They had always had in their religious doctrine that we were one family.
And back as far as 1912, I mean, if you look at the 1900s, I mean, it was still very close to the period of Reconstruction in this country. And even at the turn of the century, you know, white people, black people were being lynched, you know, I mean, even at that point. And a lot of racial tension within this country. And segregation was the standard at that particular time. And yet still, Abdul-Baha, the son of Baha'u'llah, came in 1912, spoke to an audience where people were having a discussion about whether black people and white people should sit in the same room, in the same meeting. And he had a very conservative way of approaching that. He says, not only should they sit together in the same meeting, so much love should be put in their hearts that they would sit in the same meeting, but he even implied that they should even marry each other. 1912? I mean, it was incredible. And then from that particular point on, we see a few years after that fact, the holding of a racial amity conference sponsored by the Baha'is in 1919. And this was very shortly during a period of time where the summer of 1919 or 1918 was referred to as the Red Summer, because across this country there had been 25 race riots held in this country. And so from that point on, race unity has been a central theme to all Baha'i work.
Sylvester, that's been my experience too. And George, do you have anything you would like to share?
Yes, Jane, this is a subject that's very close to my heart because I'm in an interracial marriage. And this is the quotation that Sylvester was referring to before from the Baha'i writings. If it be possible, gather together these two races, black and white, into one assembly, and put such love into their hearts that they shall not only unite, but even intermarry. Be sure that the result of this will abolish differences and disputes between black and white. Moreover, by the will of God, may it be so. This is a great service to humanity.
I'm glad to know that it's a service to humanity because I'm interracially and interculturally married also, George. So it's good to know that that's of some service.
It's so interesting that in 1912 that the Baha'i faith says that that's an element, an essential element towards bringing about the unity of the races, the unity of mankind. And you look at it on one hand as being revolutionary, but it was really quite a natural thing. I mean, it's more natural for people to come together and to mix with each other when they are in close proximity that way. It has always happened. It has to do with the natural selection process that Darwin talked about.
Well, I think it's always happened, as you're saying, Sylvester, because as late as 1930, all black people in this country were not purely black. They were somehow mixed. And that was in 1930. So certainly people have been getting together for many, many years. So it is a natural process.
Or kept apart by artificial means.
Yes,
We've actually passed miscegenation laws that says that it is unlawful for black people or white people to get married. Mm-hmm. Now, why would you pass a law if there wasn't a natural tendency for people to do it?
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
But the Baha'i faith gives us that pivot. From God, we are told to be in harmony, in one.
And the law of attraction. Yes. Baha'u'llah says that all things come into being through the power of attraction. Each people, whether it is people of color or people of cultures, have particular qualities and attributes that are uniquely their own. And when we are attracted to that diversity, it is as if we are striking a harmonious chord on a piano. A choir is beautiful because each particular group is singing a different part. Mm-hmm. But when they sing together, it brings out the harmony, even though they're different parts. What were you going to say? Something?
One of the things that occurred to me, and it almost sounds funny, I think that when you look at the animals, they do a much better job at this whole thing than we do. I mean, we sit up here and make it a big intellectual, complicated process for people of the same species mm-hmm. to come together, mm-hmm. to intermarry, to have children, and so forth. Mm-hmm. But, among the animals like dogs, cats, birds, and so forth, they're not saying, gee, I'm not going to mess with this dog because he has spots, or this one because he's, this color or that. Mm-hmm. They don't do that. They recognize there's essentially one species. Mm-hmm. And if we could just at least meet them, mm-hmm. in what they've achieved, and mm-hmm. understand that we are one kind, mm-hmm. and then that helps to resolve the whole issue. Because mm-hmm. we talked about differences and this whole maintenance of diversity and all the food and culture and stuff, but there's a universality about feelings and reality and emotions, and people essentially want the same thing, mm-hmm. and they feel the same way, and they have the same basic needs.
Mm-hmm. We're going to take a break now. When we come back, we are going to continue our discussion on the positive side of interracial dating, interracial marriage. Is there a downside to this? And what is the Baha'i teachings on this principle of the unity and oneness of all of mankind? We'll be right back.
A young man proclaims the advent of the Promised One. 20,000 of his followers are tortured and killed. The Bab is executed by a firing squad. A young nobleman, famous throughout Persia for his wisdom and goodness, is stripped of all possessions. Baha'u'llah spends the rest of his life in exile and imprisonment. He writes, "We desire but the good of the world and the happiness of the nations, that all nations should become one in faith and all men as brothers. What harm is there in this?" His crime, his claim to be the messenger of God promised by all religions. His mission, to unify humankind. Peoples from every nation have embraced his teachings, creating a new pattern of global community, a model for a peaceful world.
Welcome back to the Spiritual Revolution. George, on the break, you were talking about you and your wife.
Right. Sylvester was talking about how different cultures tend to attract each other, and that's exactly what happened with my wife and me. Interestingly enough, I assumed that I would marry either a foreign woman or a black woman, or someone from a culture other than my own. And my wife, I found out later on, always assumed that she would marry a white man. Then each of us, independently of each other, decided that that was a silly prejudice that we had against our own kind. We had to overcome that. And having overcome that, we then met and married. So that was interesting how that happened.
But friends, I hate to interrupt, but I'd like to ask, can we really talk?
Well, I guess we're going to have to.
Well, you know, it's wonderful, and I really, really applaud and celebrate diversity. However, as an African-American woman who came from a background of fear, and part of that you brought out in your comment because it's internalized. Why should we worry about who we marry? Why should we be concerned that we need to marry someone of another culture? So this question of interracial relationships first and then marriage has been something that I'd like us to really explore just a little bit longer. Because in the culture that we live, we glamorize interracial prettiness. Oh, what a beautiful child you have. But we have another child of another culture, most likely the African-American child who has not been a part of an interracial relationship. It's black mother, black father. And we very rarely celebrate and tell that child, oh, you're beautiful. But the minute, and I've seen this across the board. The minute we see an interracial child, all of a sudden they are beautiful. Now, the challenge for me in accepting the message of Baha'u'llah, I don't think is much different than any other African American woman. Because I feel this way. How is it? Maybe I'm wrong, but is it right? Is it really good? Is my race being diluted? And I don't think this is all exclusively a black question. I've heard white women and men say the same thing. What is happening there?
Well, I think that you're expressing the thing that's probably one of the most major barriers to the establishment of racial harmony. And I think it's the fear that people feel that they are their race, they are their culture, they are where they came from, they are their religion. And as such, that if somehow you tamper with my race and you destroy my race, then who am I? Well, you know, what we're trying to get back to is that we're created from the one same substance. Mankind is one. As we move into the future, you know, we are in a period of transition, and it has its attending problems, you know, with the black child or with the mixed child and so forth. And I think that we have to keep our eye on the vision. In the Baha'i writings, you know, not only does it encourage, you know, people coming together, even to the point of intermarrying, but it says that what the distant future holds, and who knows how far into the future, could be hundreds, maybe, you know, who knows how many years, that mankind will be this way. We will be blended into one race, and we will all be the followers of one religion. That's where we're going. But that's way off in the distance. But I think that what we have to do is say, yeah, it's a problem. But the issue is that we should not be inhibited. We should even actually be encouraged if necessary. Because the reality is that we shouldn't have this barrier. And what the Baha'i writings are saying, that when that begins to happen, you know, at a certain frequency and with a certain level of comfort, then the inharmony that we experience between the races will begin to dissipate.
I appreciate your acknowledging what I'm feeling. It's important, though, that when we move into dialoguing about interracial marriages, we bring it back to an awareness that the Baha'i faith is more than that.
Yeah, and a marriage is more than a racial thing. See, marriages don't work because they are either the same race or of different races. That's not what makes them work. And it's not about that. If you look at the divorce rate, you know, it's probably even among, you know, black people married to black people and white people married to white people. So therefore, being married to a person of the same race has never been a guarantee. A marriage, according to the Baha'i faith, is a spiritual coming together. And then in coming together, we are coming together based on a spiritual connection as well as a physical connection, which means that we have to have certain other things in common. It's the spiritual elements of this relationship that make it work, whether it's black or whether it's white, whether it's mixed or not.
You know, I think when we look at it, though, socially, and it's impossible for us today to cover the social ills that afflict it, whether they're American, Indian, and I'm even saying politically incorrect things, or the black woman. We know that the black woman certainly has not had the opportunities as the black male. We know that a black male of upward social mobility can basically have his choice across the board of who he chooses as a mate. But we also understand the delicate nature and heart of our African American sisters. I can say sister, that may offend another black woman, but I mean that because I understand that she has somehow been left out of the loop at this point, and it's impossible to address that. What we are on the brink of any new enlightenment, there's chaos, there's confusion. Sometimes a tree, an apple falls off and the other ripened. Does that mean the tree inherently is imperfect? It's the substance is perfect. The knowledge that mankind is one family, that the races are unified, is a perfect principle. We are in this chaos and confusion in trying to adapt it in our personal lives and in society.
Yeah, I think we also got to look at the consequences of not really getting on with this. We've had events of the recent past that has caused an incredible amount of difficulty. And it's an extension of the past, of the earlier race riots in this country, and who looked at Los Angeles, back a few years ago, and over 50 people were killed. Wars around the world that are going on where there are not that many people killed. And who knows how many hundreds of millions of dollars in property damage. So it's to everybody's benefit, whether you want to or not, even in your own self-interest, to help promote this issue, because to continue along this line of inharmony and indifference, to the problem, it will be a cause of greater difficulties each time we have an occurrence, because the potential for greater damage to each side is much greater. So we have to resolve the issue, not only because it's a thing that makes it's a good idea, because it is also the will of God.
Would you like to close with something? Why don't you say something for us?
Well, I've been listening to what Anita was saying and listening what Sylvester has been saying around the issue of interracial, intercultural marriage. And I think that the subject is extremely complex and extremely sensitive. However, I think that what the Baha'i Faith has done is that it has sanctioned interracial, intercultural harmony from God. And that is a tremendous gift to us as mankind. It means that we may have to actually consult and talk about these issues more and more, but we do know that it has been ordained by God that these things are right and will happen. Now, we may have to arise to that, but the fact that it has been ordained by God has been given.
This is an interesting subject, and we'll be right back.
There's a new world in the making. Won't you sing along with me? We are one family. We are too close not to let it be. We are sisters and brothers, a coat of many colors, you and me.
We've been talking about interracial marriage, intercultural marriage, and how it relates to racial harmony and the Baha'i Faith's teachings on these issues. But the reality of it is that the Baha'i Faith, within the Baha'i Faith, there are people who are married within the same race, within the same culture. It is a matter of fact, however, that the Baha'i Faith gives permission, it gives safety that one can be married in whatever way one chooses. It does not prohibit it as it has done, as the society has prohibited it in the past.
And we've talked a lot about interracial marriage as it has contributed to the promotion of racial harmony. But I think it's also fair to say that the Baha'i Faith has done more than just promote that. When I look back at the history of the Baha'i work on this issue in this country, beginning in the early part of the century, we were sponsoring regular interracial or conferences, race amity conferences they were called. There was a statement that was issued in 1936 by the head of the faith that talked specifically about what needed to be done in order to resolve this issue between the blacks and whites. As a part of our work, national and local race unity committees have been appointed, and we have annual race unity conferences and events in almost every community. And this kind of thing, the Baha'i international community was given the responsibility by the United Nations to help pass a convention that had been stalled in the United Nations for over 40 years. And that was a convention for the elimination of all forms of racial prejudice and so forth. And it was just a couple of years ago, through the efforts of the Baha'is, that convention was finally passed. So I think that, and in our conferences and our meetings, I have seen discussions among the Baha'is themselves, because we understand that we're held to a standard. And when we see that we're not meeting that standard, I have seen some of the most frank and loving discussion and forthright discussion over what we needed to do, surfacing the issue and talking about ways in order to improve it that I've ever seen.
I know, I agree with you. I think that what the Baha'i community has demonstrated is that it has always been in the forefront of racial harmony, and it's in it for the long haul. Even when there are disagreements among the Baha'is about exactly how we bring about unity of the races, they do not give up. They do not, they won't abandon the issue.
Also, since the inception of the institutions of the faith in this country, there were African Americans on the first national assemblies, the first supreme body in Haifa, Israel, that governs the entire Baha'i world, had people of color on it. So even administratively, positions of great leadership and of spiritual leadership, the Baha'i faith has always had people of color, people of races, people of diverse backgrounds.
I'd like to thank you for joining us, Anita Strickland, Sylvester Scott, George Lord, and Billie. It's been great working with you. Thank you for joining the Spiritual Revolution.
Let it be.